Hi, Al Williams here. I recently picked up a Andonstar, I think that's how you say that, an Andonstar AD409-MAX microscope. And as you can see, it looks kind of like a lot of these other microscopes you see, and in fact, like several other models of this that they make. It's got a 10-inch screen, it's got a fairly long lens on what probably is a USB webcam, and got a much larger bottom, which is why they call it the Max, than all the other models that I've seen. The width of the base is a little over 18 inches or 46 centimeters, and the depth of it, coming from the back of the microscope to the front, is about 14 and a half inches or 37 centimeters. And the column itself is almost 19 inches tall, not quite, it's 47 and a half centimeters. So there's a lot of room under there, and they have a little nice anti-static mat. Not that you couldn't have added that yourself, but it's a nice touch. And so it's made for soldering and inspecting electronics and doing all those sort of things that you do. At the bottom of the column, there are some very bright LED lights that are flexible. They're like on goosenecks. And then after that, you have these grippers that are basically little alligator clips on the same kind of gooseneck. So you can use that to hold items. There's a tool holder that's on the column that's essentially just a stick, and you can put like a spool of solder, you can stick screwdrivers in it, whatever little things that you need. And then, of course, the microscope head itself, which not only can slide up and down on the column, but also you can use the knob to move the head up and down, and then you grab the lens to focus it. And I have to say, I was very impressed with how sturdy it all is. It does not move, it's very heavy. It looks like a really nice piece of gear. The only thing that kind of struck me is it almost seems like it's assembled from different modules. So the microscope is clearly one thing, and it has, all the connectors on it for the SD card, for the USB port, everything. But the lights have their own connector, and there's also an endoscope, and it seems like it's completely separate. It has its own light control, its own focus mechanism. It also sits on a gooseneck. And honestly, I haven't found the endoscope that useful, but maybe if you were doing inspection, certainly the fact that you can slip it out of the gooseneck and kind of use it as a handheld thing to look at things close up, that's pretty handy. But it does seem like the focus, for example, is kind of slow on the endoscope. On the microscope, it's very fast. If you put something under there, it immediately shows up. There's not a big delay, but it's difficult to focus the endoscope because it feels like you twist the knob and then there's like a heartbeat and then the focus changes and it makes it a little harder to fix. Not a big deal, but just something to note. The only other thing that is kind of unusual is, there's a remote control, but again, it seems like it's a separate piece. So there's a lot of buttons that do things on the remote that you just have to know or look in the manual, but like the NTSC PAL button turns the endoscope view on and off, which makes no sense, right? A couple of little things like that. And it actually has Wi-Fi, but the Wi-Fi, curiously enough, actually is clearly a traffic, or not a traffic, but a dashboard cam. And so the application on your phone thinks it's a dashboard cam and it sort of acts like a dashboard cam. So it just seems like it's a lot of pieces thrown together, and it's nice build quality, don't get me wrong, but it doesn't feel like a very integrated experience. The remote is great because you don't have to push the little buttons and do different things to change it. But the focus knob on the lens, of course, is manual. So when you focus it, it's very difficult not to move things. And, I get it. That would be really hard to have a motorized, quiet, inexpensive, non-shaky focus mechanism that was operated by the remote control. But it's just something to be aware of. Other than that, I've been kind of showing a little bit of different things behind the audio here. Here you can see some coins, and if you put it far down where you would want to solder, there's quite a bit of room, probably 2 feet or so of room between the lens and the pad. But if you want to inspect something, you're going to want to move it a lot closer to the lens and then refocus, and that lets you zoom up, as you can see in this particular shot here with the coin. So the only difference is where you put the head or where you put the object. So you can either lift the object up to the head or you can move the head down to the object, then refocus, and you get a much higher magnification. That also means it's kind of hard to guess that, oh, this is 10x, because it really depends on exactly where everything is on what the amount is. They do have software for Windows, which of course I don't use, that allows you to calibrate and get readings off of there. But there's things like the endoscope doesn't work with the software, and I think it doesn't allow you to like record and do the software at the same time, which makes sense. But, it's probably not as useful for what most people reading Hackaday would do with it. If you were doing some sort of automated line, that would probably be fine. For a long time, I've subjected people at SuperCon to soldering little SMD boards with giant soldering irons, and that's the SMD challenge. If you haven't done it, come out and join us sometime. I decided to take one of those kits under the microscope with probably not quite as big an iron as we use on the challenge, but still pretty big, and decided to do a little soldering under the microscope with it. You can see here, this is a view from the endoscope, and in fact, when you do a recording, it actually gives you two recordings, one from the main camera and one from the endoscope. And on the screen, you can change that to show either the endoscope, the main scope, or a picture-in-picture where you see the endoscope in like a little bitty picture. One problem is if you're not looking at the endoscope, like you wouldn't be if you were soldering, then you wind up most of the time, or at least me, videoing a fuzzy endoscope picture that is really useless. But, on the other hand, you erase it off your SD card, no harm, no foul. I gotta say, the microscope was great. The colors look good. There's no lag in the image. There's lots and lots of room to work. If I had one complaint, it would be that if you move things out of the light field, it just goes completely dark. So you really need bright, bright lights, and it has bright, bright lights. You just have to keep adjusting them if you want to move it up. The other alternative is to move the head down and keep the light and the object in the same place, which probably is smarter, but for some reason, not the way I did it. Any event, I'll have to write up a little more about it. You can read the post on Hackaday, but I just thought, a picture's worth 1,000 words, and between these pictures and videos, it might give you an idea of the capabilities of this microscope. Thanks for watching.